is going on, YouTube? So coming back today with my next top 10, and today I will be doing my top 10 NBA draft busts of all time. So I've already done my NFL, and I did that one a little while ago, so I figured I'd do my NBA before too long. And this is a list that's kind of hard to put together because there are a lot of candidates for the bottom end of this list. About numbers 7 through 10 are very hard to put together, but I did the best I could, and here it goes. So at number 10, I have the 1984 second overall pick for the Portland Trail Blazers, a very, very famous pick, and that is Sam Bowie. Mainly because of the other players that were taken in that class, most notably Charles Barkley and, Michael Jordan. So most people know about this pick. I'd say this is the biggest example of draft, basically NBA draft mythology of you don't draft for need, you draft for skill. The Blazers are a team that already had Clyde Drexler, so they figured that they would go ahead and pick up a center instead of a small forward, shooting guard, or power forward, and you see how that turned out. Sam Bowie actually didn't have terrible career averages. He averaged about, I think, 10 points per game and 7.5 rebounds, which honestly isn't awful. I mean, for a second overall pick, it's not great, but it was mainly just the fact of who he was compared to and the fact he just didn't last that long because of injuries. So at number 9, I've got the 1986 third overall pick for the Golden State Warriors, and I believe this was an NC State product, and that is Chris Washburn. So I don't think he really ever panned out. I think he played about 3 seasons in the NBA. Actually, I can't remember which way the stat goes. I'd have to look this up. I believe it was Chris Washburn that either had 72 points in 229 games, or the other way around. Let me see this right quick. Okay, yeah. So I think he had less than 100 career points, and I mean, honestly, he was considered a project in college, and in the NBA, just like I said, never panned out. He played for the Warriors and the Hawks. Lasted only about 3 years in the NBA. Like I said, it's about 75 points in 229 career games, somewhere in that realm. So, that one was a big bust. And then next one, I've got the very famous 2003 overall pick, and that was by the LA Clippers, and that's Darius Miles. So the 2000 draft as a whole, the first round has just been an enormous bust. Just a couple of names that come to mind. Darius Miles, probably the biggest one. Keon Dooling, who honestly was okay for a little bit. Team Cleaves for sure, but anyway, Darius Miles, I think, was the biggest bust out of all of them. This was a guy that actually played pretty good his rookie year, ended up on the All-NBA rookie team, first team, and just never panned out after that. Ended up retiring from the NBA after, I believe it was 2008 or 2009, so he did last a little while, but just never had a good season after that. Enormous ceiling, enormous potential, good score, just never fulfilled it. So at number 7, I have the 1989 second overall pick to the Los Angeles Clippers. I believe there's like 3 Clippers picks on here, maybe 4. But that is Danny Ferry. So this is a guy that just never seemed like he wanted to play in the NBA. I believe he floated around through a couple teams. I believe the ones I can think of off the top of my head are the Cleveland Cavaliers and obviously the LA Clippers. But like I said, this is a guy that just never seemed like he wanted to play. Decent upside. Again, I wasn't really alive during this time, but just, I think he only lasted, he lasted about 10 or 12 seasons in the NBA, but he just, he didn't seem like he wanted to play, and at least while he was on the Clippers. And then went to Cleveland. I believe he spent about 10 seasons there, and then ran into a lot of injury problems. But at number 6, this is where it starts getting real good. I've got the 2006 third overall pick, and that was the pick by the Charlotte Bobcats, Adam Morrison. So Adam Morrison was a star at Gonzaga. Very good scorer while he was there, and lasted only till about, I believe, 2010 in the NBA. This was a guy who was expected to do big things as a scorer in the NBA, and like I said, just never panned out. A lot of people chalk it up to just going to the Bobcats and running into a bad situation there. Obviously, the Bobcats really didn't have anyone that panned out throughout the first 3 or 4 years of that franchise being there in the first place. Another guy that was drafted that had big expectations that didn't really pan out too well was Emeka Okafor. Was supposed to be the center of that the center of that franchise in the terms of position and just the face of the franchise. But Adam Morrison was the next up and wasn't any better. So at number 5, I've got the 1998 first overall pick, and I think he could actually be a little bit higher on this list. That is, if I didn't mention, by the Clippers, Michael Olowokandi. So Candy Mannix, another guy, huge expectations coming into the NBA. Drafted in a draft that featured Vince Carter, Paul Pierce, I believe Ray Allen as well. And again, never panned out. So, like I said, could be a little bit higher on this list. I have no idea what any of his career averages were. But, again, definitely a top 5 bust of all time. Number 4, I've got the 2001 first overall pick and one of the most famous busts of all time, and that is Kwame Brown. So, actually a guy that Michael Jordan was very high on coming out of college. And I'm actually going to put a link in the description below because it's some of my favorite stuff to watch. It's just Kwame Brown's worst plays. Kwame Brown bloopers. And I just... he just wasn't good. Like, he was expected to do huge things and floated around in the NBA for about 10 years, averaged about 6 points, 5 rebounds, and yeah, it was just extremely bad for pretty much all of his career. Played for the Lakers for quite a bit of his career. Wizards didn't last that long. He lasted on the Pistons a little bit as well. There were a few other teams. I believe he was on the Sixers for a little bit as well. But yeah, number 3, I've got the 2003 second overall pick to the Detroit Pistons, and that's Darko Milicic. So 2003 is one of the best drafts ever. You're looking at a top 5 that has Carmelo Anthony, Dwayne Wade, LeBron, of course, and I believe Chris Bosh as well. And then it's also Darko Milicic. Just never really fit in the NBA. He had enormous potential. Spent quite a bit of time on the Pistons, the Celtics, and just like I said, never panned out. Averaged, I think he had bright spots at times. Averaged, I believe, about 7 points, 5 rebounds. But like I said, just overall, very big bust. At number 2, I've got the 2007 first overall pick to the Portland Trail Blazers, and that's Greg Oden. So I chalk up Greg Oden's bust status mainly to just bad luck with injuries. There's not much else to say for that. I think he would have been decent in the NBA if it wasn't for knee problems, but and it's also inflated because of the fact of who was taken second overall that year and one of the best players on the planet now, and Kevin Durant. So at number 1, and it seems weird to put this guy this far up already, but there was no reason. It's just he just sucked, and that was Anthony Bennett, the 2013 first overall pick to the Cleveland Cavaliers. A little stretch where the Cleveland Cavaliers had a few years in this decade of first overall picks, and this one was by far the worst. I mean, obviously they also had Andrew Wiggins, they had Kyrie as well, and those both have turned out okay so far. Andrew Wiggins not with the Cavs, but anyway, this guy just didn't pan out at all. I believe he went his first, it was something like his first 10 or 12 games in the NBA. He was starting some of the games and just didn't score a point. Might have been his first 7. Like I said, it was either his first 7 or 10. And it just never showed any bright spots. He was compared a lot coming out of college. I went to UNLV, compared a lot to Larry Johnson. Granted, 2003 wasn't a very good draft to begin with, but there were other candidates there that you could have taken first overall, most notably Victor Oladipo. Nerlens Noel was also good out of that draft. Even Trey Burke, I believe he was a lottery pick. Hasn't turned out great, but again, not terrible either. Anthony Bennett might actually be the worst player that was drafted in that first round. But anyway, yeah, I thought that'd be a fun little video to do. I like talking about stuff like that, just looking back on the goods and bads of NFL and NBA drafts. And yeah, that's pretty much it. If, like I said, if you've not checked out my NFL version of the video yet, I'll put the link to the entire top 10 playlist in the description below. It is on that, and I will be posting the last 2 days of top 10s in the outro. So that's pretty much it. So yeah, if you have not seen the last 2 days of my top 10s, they will be in the outro, and the entire link to the entire playlist will be in the description below. So today I want to do a pretty fun video that is the top 10 fastest players in college football. So this includes players that will be playing this coming year.